Hello everyone and good evening. Welcome to tonight's training session on resilience. Pauline has been whisked away on a surprise holiday from her husband. Like poor Louise from Pauline's office has not been whisked away on a surprise holiday and is instead going to lead the session. I've already discovered Louise is as much fun as Pauline, and she's got the great Scottish accent. So don't worry about that. So I am going to hand over to Louise now to run the session. If you're not familiar with Learn to Grow, I know some of you are because you've met Pauline at various leadership academies. I know Kerry is waiting to be Pauline's daughter-in-law. Louise can't offer you that, I don't think. But Learn to Grow are an amazing company, do some brilliant leadership training, lots of great stuff on mindset and kind of making your business the best it can be. And I know this session, no pressure Louise, but will be absolutely amazing, and we'll all get so much from it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Louise.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lucy, and thank you all for having me. This is my first experience with Usborne Books, so thank you very much. So for those of you who have met Pauline before, Pauline and I have worked together in the past, and we've worked together for quite a few years now, and we do have a lot of fun. So those of you who have been in a training room with Pauline will know that laughter always happens when Pauline's around, so that's great fun. I am going to share my screen. So I'll take you through some of the slides, but the session that we're looking at today is around resilience. And resilience is massively important when we are running our own businesses in particular. But generally, you know, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis still. There are lots of things going on in the world. We have so many pressures and challenges upon us. And whilst this is all sounding very negative, it's going to be a very positive session, I promise. And it's just really to equip us. We all have resilience within us, and it's to look at how we can draw upon that resilience and being able to identify situations that we can draw upon that resilience, or we need to draw upon the resilience. So I'm just going to share the screen, so just bear with me till I pop it into slideshow view. Okay, so you should be able to see the introduction slide. So Resilient Me, my name is Louise Cooper. If anybody's on LinkedIn, please do feel free to add me. And as I said, I've been working with Pauline for many years now. I've been delivering training for about 20 years. And usually that is in person. This is bringing me back to lockdown days, which is topical in terms of resilience, because we all had to draw upon our resilience throughout lockdown. Even the people who kind of see or experienced a lot of positivity through lockdown, it was definitely a time where we experienced challenges that we had never experienced before. I will be asking throughout the session, I will be asking for you to interact. I see that quite a lot of cameras are on. Thank you very much for that. That's brilliant. It's always good to know that I am speaking to people in real life. I understand some people might be putting children to bed and that kind of thing, and I've absolutely been in that position as well. I have 2 young children, so quite often have to work around them as well. So if you're not able to put your camera on, that's absolutely fine. Please do feel free to, I'll be inviting you to join the chat and do some kind of discussion over the chat. So please do feel free to join in there, and also feel free to get involved. So I'll ask some questions. It is only a 1-hour session, so we've only got until 9 o'clock. So there won't be a huge amount of interaction, but there will be a little bit. So in terms of objectives, so tonight we're going to have a look at understanding what resilience is and why it's important, recognizing good habits that underpin resilience, describing the habits of resilient people, and understanding actions that you can take for self-motivation. So at the end, I'll be asking you to consider, okay, what are you going to do now? So it's all very well joining training courses and, you know, learning about different topics, but if we don't put them into action, then it's been a waste of time. So I will be asking you to identify where you can kind of put that learning into practice. A lot of what we covered tonight, you will know, These will be things that you have, that you've learned before, or that you kind of just know through your experiences and through life. But sometimes we need reminding, sometimes we need a bit of a refresher, particularly if you're in a situation where things are overwhelming and stressful. So what do you think resilience is? And also, how would you describe resilience to others? So I am going to invite you, if anybody wants to unmute themselves and answer that question, or give us your thoughts regarding resilience, please don't be shy. Alternatively, if you would like to, in the chat, if you would like to pop a message in terms of answering that question, that would be great as well. So I'll just pause for a moment to see if anybody's up for joining in. We have somebody who's in bed with a cold. Oh no, hope you feel better soon, Claire. And someone's got twins. That'll be challenging. Okay, so thank you for that. So Nikki, so being strong and being able to handle it, absolutely. Resilience is about keeping trying. Sorry, being strong, being able to handle it. So that was Captain Alice's World of Books. I love it. Bouncing back from something that has knocked you, absolutely. Bouncing back when you have some negativity thrown at you, for sure. Being able to deal with obstacles and challenges that come in the way, definitely. One thing that I was considering as I was preparing for this session, I was considering how we teach children about resilience. That was another one. So bouncing back when things go wrong. That's okay that your camera's off, no problem at all, Amy. Thank you. Being able to deal with obstacles and challenges that come in the way. So yeah, we teach children about resilience, and we do that in a variety of ways. And I know a lot of you have children, and you also sell books. And so I actually looked up your website and was looking at books that kind of related to resilience. So if we have time at the end, I'm going to ask you to let me know what you think ones that related, children's books that relate to resilience are. I've got a list of 8 that I identified, but there might be more. Okay, thank you for getting involved there. That is really helpful. And it's always nice, again, to know that I'm not talking to myself. It's great. So in terms of definitions of resilience, so the general capacity, sorry, just a second. So the general capacity for flexible and resourceful adaptation to internal and external stressors. There was a lot in the chat about bouncing back. So an ability to experience and bounce back from negative emotional experiences by adaptation to check the changing demands of stressful experiences. And lastly, effective coping and adaptation when faced with hardship and adversity. So a few different definitions there. What I'm going to ask you to think about are the times that you have had to draw upon your resilience. So if I can ask you to have those in mind, and because it'll be useful throughout the session to think about when you have shown resilience, I think all of us can probably relate, and I mentioned lockdown and COVID before, all of us can probably relate to needing to draw upon our resilience in COVID times. But what other situations are there that you have had to draw upon your resilience? I'll share a couple of the kind of first things that come to mind for me. One, so I have 2 young children, and when I had my first, my daughter, she just turned 8. And when I had her, I had decided that I wanted to breastfeed her. And I had huge challenges breastfeeding. And I had to draw upon every ounce of my resilience to continue that breastfeeding journey. And there are, and we'll come on to things that can help us be more resilient. So I'll come back to that. But that was one time in my life where I really, really needed to draw upon my resilience, and without a doubt developed my resilience. The second one that comes to mind for me is when so last year I broke my ankle, and I did it in style. So I broke 3 bones, a trimalleolar fracture. And the surgeon told me after I'd had my x-ray, the surgeon told me that some people don't walk again after that fracture. It's the worst ankle break you can do. So as you can imagine, with 2 young children, I was absolutely terrified and was really worried about how I was going to look after and care for my children when I couldn't walk. And so again, that is one time where my resilience, I really, really needed to draw on my resilience in that situation. And then the third time, I've just gone back to university after 20 years, and I'm studying a master's in psychology. So I have found it extremely challenging. And when Pauline asked me to deliver tonight's session, I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to be taking my own advice at the end of this session because, because it's quite, it's quite stressful. Anyone who's gone back to studying with children and running their own business will be able to relate to the challenges. So that's maybe giving you some thinking time instead of in terms of considering your own resilience. So would anybody be willing to share their examples of resilience in the chat? I was the same with my little girl and was very poorly at the start, but my little girl had an allergy to formula, so really had to keep going. Oh, Danny, that sounds stressful, but you did keep going, and that's absolutely amazing. And, equally, no judgment for people that aren't able to keep going. However, the added pressure of the allergy to formula must have been really challenging. Okay, anyone else want to share an experience? It's just to kind of illustrate how many situations in our life there are where we need to draw on that resilience. I think it was just COVID and Boris telling me I couldn't go into school. Absolutely, that was a really tough one as well. And I think probably many people here this evening can relate to that one as well. Quite topical in the news just now as well with Boris. Okay. Oh, losing my job due to low budget at the school, but I had to go for another job, lots of interviews and applications, absolutely. I broke my kneecap 5 years ago, 3 months before my wedding. It took me 2 months to recover and learn to walk again. I can absolutely relate to that situation, Hassani. Okay, so some good examples coming through there. Thank you for sharing those. Oh, one more. So studying while pregnant and losing all my work from the laptop. That is my worst nightmare. I keep on emailing myself my coursework so that doesn't happen. So yeah, Lisa, I can't even imagine. I definitely didn't have the brain space when I was pregnant, and until I went back to university when my son turned 5. So I thought, he's starting school, I'll go back to school. And needing to give up work when I was pregnant early and worked out what to do. Very challenging. It's a really scary time as well. So there's that added pressure of the responsibility that you're going to have very soon. Okay, thank you very much for sharing those. Put back to the slides. So why is resilience important? Resilience is important because it helps us cope better with adversity, with challenges and setbacks. Having resilience enables us to adapt and bounce back from challenges. So some of those that you talked about, you'll be able to relate. Resilience plays a vital role in maintaining positive mental health. And absolutely right. Our mental health is increasingly being recognised as important, and it is so, so important. And it's as important as our physical health, even though some people don't look after their mental health as much as they do their physical health. Resilient people are better equipped to face setbacks and persevere towards their goals. Absolutely. Being resilient allows us to build strong networks that provide emotional and practical support. Oh, missed one there. And resilience empowers people to navigate through life's adversities. Okay, so what factors do you think contribute to being resilient? Spoiler, they're already on the screen. So in terms of personal resilience, they can be broken down into 3 areas. You might be able to add some to these. But first of all, physical. So in terms of physical, it's not just about movement. One thing would be around getting enough sleep, limiting alcohol, eating well, being active, etc. So for me, I always ran. I was always a runner, and I broke my ankle and I couldn't run anymore. And for me, I had run for 20 odd years, and it was always what kept. I think I saved thousands of pounds in therapy because I was keeping active. I was running all the time. If I was stressed, I went for a run. If I was upset, I went for a run. And then I had to find something else that works. And I realized that actually just being outdoors, moving around, going for a walk, going swimming, anything active. My husband has a commuter scooter, which I've taken to going out with the kids. They go on their scooters and I go on my husband's, which is lots of fun. So think about what, in terms of the physical aspect of things, what works for you, because what works for one person will be different for another person. But are you getting enough sleep? It was on the news this morning, actually, that just how many people are not getting enough sleep. So, think about that. Think about how you're looking after your body. In terms of mental factors, so self-awareness, positive self-image, mood control, other internal factors. And again, what works for one person will be completely different for another. It'll be related to your personality. It'll be related to lots of different things about you and your kind of mindset. For me, it's about that kind of positive self-belief. So knowing that I can do it, or having faith in myself. It's about the kind of glass half full attitude. So being able, the kind of positivity and optimism, and also having a bit of self-compassion. So looking after yourself and thinking about if your best friend or somebody close to you was in the same situation that you were in, how would you support them? Because often we don't give ourselves the kindness that we give to other people. Okay. And then the last one there, so the emotional and social side of things. So having positive relationships, having a support network. In terms of what works for me, so when I broke my ankle, I had a team of mum friends in the village that I live in who all had offered up their help. So I ended up with a kind of help chat. Every Sunday I would message this group chat of mum friends and would ask who could take my kids to work, who could take me to fracture clinic, who could take me to my physio appointments, because I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk. And that was only for a short period. I actually ended up on a mobility scooter at one point and a wheelchair. But yeah, it was only for a short period. But knowing that I had that support, it actually made me feel really emotional. It made me feel more emotional, but positive, in a positive respect. When I had my breastfeeding struggles, I had a breastfeeding counsellor who came round to my house in her pajamas one night because I was in such a state. And again, knowing that I had that support, so knowing that somebody was there and that I wasn't alone was amazing. And when I have my university struggles, anybody that studies or has studied will know that having that network of peer support is amazing. So again, if I could ask you to have a think about what works for you. Different things work for different people. So if anyone would like to kind of chime in with what works for them, that would be great. I see there's sorry, I had the chat closed there, so I'm just gonna have a look back. I was working whilst having a placement too and had limited time to rewrite. Oh my goodness, that was the losing the work. One thing I find difficult as an Usborne partner is being resilient as I'm starting up, quite new to being a partner. In my day job, we have a lot of stressors that are quite unique, and my team are like second family, emergency services. So this is a very different scenario for me. Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely relate to that team being like the second family. I wonder if there are any maybe experienced partners who could offer up some advice there. I know there are some more experienced people on the call, some newer partners. If anybody has any advice for Rachel, please do reply to that, or maybe get in touch after the call. That would be fantastic. Anyone else in terms of what works for you? Feel free to speak to us and turn yourself off mute. I think you can build the same vibe within your team community. Absolutely. Some of my team have become my closest friends. I can relate to that. I worked in hospitality from 13 years old, and some of my best friends, my bridesmaid, were people that I worked with in hotels. And I think, you know, when you have a workplace that is sociable and supportive, that you definitely do build relationships that last for life sometimes.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was going to say that it's made so all the way through lockdown. I think the resilience of having the team all together, and you know, I spoke to my team every single day in lockdown. We were Zoom, we were having Zoom parties, and we absolutely kept each other going. And that's still the same now. You know, like with having your team and having like your community, I would say is the same as having. You've always got somebody that's got your back. You know, if you're having a bad day, just speak to, you know, I'll message Karen and say, my mentor, just say, oh, this is going wrong, or this is going, and just having somebody just go, yeah, that's happened to me. Oh, let's do this, or let's look at that way. And I try to do that with my team, just to be like, because we've all been in the same boat, we've all had the same situations. So just offering, you know, those opportunities to chat, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alison. How long have you worked with Osborne?
5 years, just over 5 years.
Okay, brilliant. And have you been to Pauline's sessions?
No, I don't think I have. I don't think I have, actually.
No, not yet.
Many of them, but
we'll meet her.
So many.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of comments in the chat. Feel free to join in and speak up, anybody else. Definitely, I work in mental health and a leisure environment, and both have strong teamwork and camaraderie. Absolutely. Gardening is one for me. Just seeing the bulbs growing or trees changing color, have to get some green therapy. Absolutely. And I can relate to that from a nature point of view. I'm not much of a gardener, but I can absolutely relate to that from a nature point of view, Alice. Anybody else? What works for you? Anything different from what we've kind of mentioned? No? Oh, reading and baking. Yeah, absolutely. Having some downtime. Another baker here. I feel like we all need to get together and you can bake some cakes. Music. Yeah, music. Driving fast with loud music. Love it, Kerry. Hopefully not too fast. But yeah, absolutely. And music is a big one. Listening to music or reading when I'm on my own. Yeah, definitely. Nobody dancing. No dancers here. Okay, I shall move on. Thank you very much for sharing those. And again, keep thinking about the things that work for you, because the more we can build in to our lives and kind of consciously build in these things. Because if we just coast along, chances are life will take over and things will get on top of us. Friends, especially since having my little girl, mum friends, Danny, I can absolutely relate to that. I have got the most wonderful, well, I mentioned I've got the most wonderful network of mum friends, and I honestly, I couldn't do parenting without them. It is very much the village that people talk about. Love a kitchen disco, me too, with the kids. Yeah, getting involved, although they always take over Alexa. Okay, thank you very much. So, my daughter builds my resilience. Can you tell me more about that, Alison, please? Because I agree completely.
Oh, I've turned you round. Oh, how have I done that? You really don't. It's random. I've turned you round. I can't see me, but you can look at my screen. How have I turned me around? Sorry, turn around. So I find if something's gone wrong with my business that's not worked. Sorry, my camera's still odd. Can you see me? Okay. I find something's not going right in my day to day. Then just like taking some time out with my daughter just to focus on why I'm doing this, or why.
Absolutely.
And she just builds my resilience. And I also think, right, how I'm reacting to things is how she's learning to be resilient.
Absolutely.
So I think to myself, right, how would I want her to react to the situation? How do I want her to be in the future with these situations? And that helps me to build resilience. I find that it's changed. My resilience has changed all the way through my life with different. And now I find that I think to myself, right, what would she want me to do now?
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. And I think it's about that kind of role modeling. And ultimately, you are a leader for your child.
Yeah.
And so many people, when I deliver a lot of leadership training, and when we talk about leadership, if it's maybe new managers or supervisors moving into manager positions and they say, oh no, I don't have any management or leadership experience. And then they go on to tell me that they've got children. And I say, well, you absolutely do have leadership and management experience, because, you are a role model and you are a leader for your children. But they definitely will learn from how you react in these situations. So even, in those situations, whether it's parenthood or leadership, and for the leaders, who are here this evening, it is definitely worth thinking about how you respond to situations of stress, or situations where you feel overwhelmed, or things are getting a bit too much. But bearing in mind that we're all human, and so talking things through and asking for support as well is massively important. Okay, so emotions, feelings, and moods. So when something bad or unexpected happens, we react instinctively. We go into fight or flight, or freeze actually, mode, as a defensive response driven by an emotion. So emotions, in terms of defining or discriminating between the three of these, because they tend to be used they tend to be used collectively. But an emotion is a short-lived experience that is the result of a subconscious reaction to something. So that can cause us to react instinctively. A feeling, so it's very short-lived. It's kind of it's a kind of passing emotion. That then leads on to a feeling, and that is the conscious recognition of that emotion that can affect our thinking and behavior. So, for example, if the emotion was happiness, the feeling would be a feeling of joy, and that is longer lasting than that emotion being happiness. As I said, we do tend to, I deliver emotional intelligence training, and even within the kind of introduction courses, I'll talk about emotions and feelings kind of interchangeably. And then we've got moods, and we all know about moods. But when we talk about moods, we're talking about emotional feelings that last a long time and affect the way that we interpret other emotions, feelings, and experiences. Any questions about those? Chat is open, or feel free to speak up. No. When I delivered training courses in lockdown, I used to pick on people quite a lot, so I use their names, but I'll not be mean tonight, because I know it's evening and I know a lot of you have got children and all of that kind of thing, so maybe can't actually join in the chat. Okay, so we're now going to have a look at habits of resilient people. What I would like you to do throughout when we look at each of these, so there are 10 habits, there probably are more, but we're going to cover 10 habits of resilient people. What I'd like you to do is to consider consider if you were to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of those. I'd like you to consider what that would be. And reflecting upon, so when you are rating yourself, so if we were in a training room, I'd be asking you to have discussions with the group, and we'd spend a lot more time on it. But what I'd like you just to consider is, why have you rated yourself? So if on a scale of 1 to 10, for the first one, you have rated yourself, say a 7, I'm going to ask you to consider, why have you rated yourself a 7 and maybe not a 6? So what's got you to that point? And then then I want you to think about, okay, so how would I get to an 8? What would have to change, or what action would I have to take for me to get to an 8? So just 1 point higher. We don't need to get to a 10. How could I improve just marginally? Because it is that kind of little by little, and it's one of these things that we can that we build on in kind of small chunks, rather than trying to ace everything. So the first one is around a positive outlook. So resilient people tend to look for the positive in all situations. This doesn't mean that they ignore the negative, simply that they're able to balance it out. Okay, so have a think about. And if anyone would like to come in with any examples with that, that would be welcomed. I am trying to encourage you, speak to me. So a positive outlook. So consider on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself? And why is it you're putting yourself at the rating? Why have you given yourself the rating you've given yourself and not lower? And how would you get 1 step up on the scale? If anyone has pen and paper, please do note these down, because I will be asking for actions at the end. So this is a kind of prompt, a call for action. So yeah, please do note down anything that comes to you with any of these, and particularly if there's any that stand out for you as being quite low, please, have special emphasis on those, because those are potential areas for development. Being big picture focused. So resilient people focus on the long term and don't sweat the small stuff. And there'll be some people that, are looking at this and thinking, yeah, absolutely, that's me. And there'll be other people that are saying, absolutely not, I overthink everything, I'm an overthinker, and that kind of thing. And there'll be everything in between. And that's absolutely fine. But I think it's really important to recognize in ourselves where we are on that kind of spectrum, and how we can move up. Mickey, you're an overthinker completely. So for you, Mickey, thinking about, okay, so how can I put the things that you're overthinking about, how can you put them into perspective? How can you consider, right, because that's when people overthink things, it tends to kind of take over and overwhelm us. And being able to address that will give you much more kind of clarity, much more space, much more time to focus on the things that you need to focus on. And Lisa, you always find the busier you are, the more you overthink. Yeah, and that's common as well. And without sounding blasé, often we kind of, when we get really, really busy, we start blowing things out of proportion, and we need to be able to put things in perspective. And sometimes for some people that might be about getting a pen and paper and writing down absolutely everything. For other people it might be sitting down with somebody and talking through everything. So Mickey, yeah, it can take over, but I've learned to ask, is it real or just a thought or an overreaction? Yeah, absolutely. And another thing, thinking in that respect, is thinking in a week's time, how relevant will this be? How big will this be? In a year's time, will I remember this situation? So again, that really helps to kind of put that into perspective. Okay, the next one, adaptability. So resilient people are willing and able to change their approach. To change their approach and plans, rather than being fixated on one outcome or way of doing something. So this often comes into personality. So I am a Myers-Briggs practitioner, so I do psychometric testing, and within Myers-Briggs there are 2 different types of personality. Well, there's actually 16 different types of personality, but part of it, there are people who have a preference for having structure and having order and having knowing exactly what the plan is and following that plan. And there are people who prefer to kind of be able to go with the flow and just work as they please and as they feel like at the time. Now, we all, if we have jobs, in fact, even if we haven't got jobs, we all will have to do both in different kind of facets of our lives. However, if we are absolutely fixated on one way of doing things and things don't go right, that can be quite challenging. So again, thinking about how we can overcome that, how we can, I suppose, work more flexibly. So again, thinking about what scale, where you would put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How willing are you to change your approach? And what could you do to kind of be more flexible and change, and in terms of willingness to change your approach? Again, if anyone wants to join in, please do.
I think the adaptability one's an interesting one, because I've had managers that think it's almost not good ones, that think it's like a sign of weakness to change your approach.
Okay.
And actually, I think it's a strength that you've
Absolutely.
listened to someone else and you've understood that actually that approach isn't necessarily the best way of doing things. And I think, yeah, I think some of these things actually is kind of like constantly flipping things, isn't it? That where some people might see something as a weakness, actually it's a strength. And I think adaptability is definitely one of the biggest strengths. If something's not working, like, don't keep doing it just because you think you should, or that was the original plan.
No, I agree completely. Interesting point there, Rachel. The older I've got, the harder I find adaptability. Rachel, do you mind me asking, in what respect? So in kind of social life or work, or what respect do you find it more difficult? The reason I ask is because I feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like throughout my life I've become more kind of adaptable. Danny worked in education, adapt during a class when my plan isn't working for certain children, change my approach on how to teach. Yeah, absolutely. And I think any kind of teaching or training, we do have to adapt to the situation. It's situational. Sorry, coming back to Rachel. So both, I'd say, in technology, and I think I might become a little set in my ways. Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for technology, because it's a very, when it's a technical skill, and if you aren't technically minded, we see it as a challenge. And so we will all have particular strengths. And when we look at things like strength-based leadership, it tells us to focus on what we're good at, and put our time and energy and effort into our strengths, and we'll get further. And whilst within the strength-based leadership kind of concept, it also has fatal flaws, and these are kind of unacceptable flaws. But in general, it says about, it talks about having weaknesses and being okay with them. And I think possibly technology might come into that, and it might be about about questioning, well, what tools are there, or what support do I have to support with technology? When I set up my business, the best piece of advice I got was spend your time doing the parts of the job that you love, and the parts of the job that you're good at. And I immediately hired an accountant, because finance is just not my thing at all. And in the 13 years that I've run a business, I have never regretted, and I have never grudged the payment that I make to my accountant, because it allows me to use my time in the way I want to use it. So I think, considering, sorry, for you, Rachel, considering technology, are there things that can support? If it's not a strength, are there ways to support that? Work with young children and being flexible and adaptable is something I definitely can do good. I think it's absolutely needed, and probably in parenting as well, because if one strategy doesn't work, we need to find another one that does work. Alice, so learned to be adaptable, growing the business, COVID, but making it work, then adding in Usborne to the mix. Love how so adaptable I am now. That's good, brilliant. get the professionals to do their job so that you can get on with your Snap accountant. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, with anything where people have a skill that I don't have, I never grudge that, you know, I never grudge paying for that. Yeah, okay. So seeing different perspectives. So resilient people are able to see things from a different point of view, even if they don't agree with it, they can respect other people's perspectives and drivers. So kind of being open-minded. So how open-minded are you? So think again, going back to that scale of 1 to 10, and where would you put yourself in terms of open-mindedness? And I think with this one, we have to be really honest with ourselves. So as humans, we are little judging machines. We all judge, and we all, or most of us, try to be non-judgmental. But as humans, we do judge. And so sometimes we can find it difficult to see other people's perspectives. One tool we use in the training room, I should have had it here, is a beach ball. So some of you might have, I know Pauline quite likes the beach ball analogy as well. So those of you who have worked with Pauline, so I'll hold a beach ball in front of the room, and I'll ask you what color it is. So you might tell me that it's red, white, and blue. And I'll say, no, it's not, it's yellow and white. Because my side of the beach ball is yellow and white, your side of the beach ball is red, white, and blue. So you're right, and I'm right. And what we need to do is we need to look at the whole picture. So we need to look at the whole ball to see that the ball is in fact red, white, yellow, and blue. So it's got all the colors. And sometimes in life, when we know that we're right, if someone is saying something that opposes that, we have a hard time considering their perspective. And I think just remembering that beach ball, remembering that it is possible for both of us to be right, is really helpful sometimes. Okay. Oh, there's still some people joining. Okay, so I'll go on to the next one. Taking control. So resilient people focus their energy and attention and what is within their direct control rather than on things that they cannot influence. And going back to the overthinking, often we overthink things that aren't in our control, things that, you know, we can't do anything to change. I can see you nodding there, Lucy. We can't do anything to change. And actually, we're hurting ourselves. So it's, you know, the only person that we're kind of punishing in that situation is ourselves. So being able to kind of take a step back and consider, okay, what is in my control can be really helpful. I'll ask you again to think about that scale of 1 to 10 and where you think you are. I'm very conscious of time. Where are we? 15 minutes left. We'll do it. Display emotional intelligence. So resilient people recognize and respect their emotions and feelings, but they don't let them define, there should be a let in there, they don't let them define who they are or drive their behavior. So anyone who has kind of looked into emotional intelligence before will see that. But if you haven't, considering in terms of your emotional intelligence and how you display your emotional intelligence, think about situations where you are particularly emotional. In the moment, are you able to recognize and identify which emotion's taking place? That might sound a bit strange. You might think, well, of course I can. However, think about a situation where you've been really, really angry, and think about the phrase, I saw red. So when we see red, we're not in that moment thinking, I am so angry. We are oblivious and we're probably reacting. So we're probably reacting without acknowledging this is anger. And what are my best, what would be the best response in this situation? So emotional intelligence is it's a huge topic, and I could talk about it all day. I started studying it about 15 years ago and I'm still learning. But if anybody is interested in emotional intelligence, being book people, a good place to start is Daniel Goleman. He's an excellent author. He's kind of known as the authority on emotional intelligence. If you can be an authority on such a topic, it would be him. So Daniel Goleman. The next one is to challenge assumptions. So resilient people recognize when they're leaping to conclusions and challenge the assumptions they're making and conclusions that they've drawn. They look for evidence, evidence to prove or disprove their thoughts. So going into that kind of reflective process, being able to think about, okay, well, is this right? We all at some points jump to conclusions. We all at some points make assumptions, and it goes back to that kind of self-awareness to consider, is this the reality? So again, thinking about on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put yourself? And just 3 more. So develop a good support network. So resilient people build good relationships inside and outside of work, and they ask for help when they need it. I think this one is massively important, and for me personally, with my personality, this one probably would be the most important for me. And again, it's worth considering, out of all the ones we've talked about, which ones are the most important for you, the ones that you think would have the most impact on your resilience and on how you overcome challenges. So again, thinking about your support network and considering where that would be on a scale of 1 to 10. And then practicing mindfulness. Does anybody here do mindfulness? I bet there are some people who just don't want to speak up. So resilient people focus on the here and now. They live in the present and are aware of their feelings, but they don't let them drive their actions. So mindfulness, and oh, Mickey, you dabble in it. Good, me too. Mindfulness indeed, Hassani. It connects with all the other points. It kind of brings them together, doesn't it? I used to do transcendental meditation, and I remember my instructor. So I went and did a I think it was a week course, and my instructor said, if you don't have time to meditate, you need to meditate. And I think, mindfulness and meditation absolutely come hand in hand. I know you're all really, really busy people. A lot of you have children and you're juggling lots of balls, spinning lots of plates, whatever analogy you want to use. And just finding that time can help massively, just giving you some headspace. The Headspace app is really good if anybody uses that as well. I can see some children on cameras. That's quite nice. Shorna, I saw your little one just peeking in there. It's always welcomed. And reflect and recharge. So resilient people, oh, hello. Resilient people understand the importance of mental and physical rest. They take time to reflect, so learn before leaping into the next situation. So again, thinking about that kind of reflective practice. In terms of reflective practice, if it's not something you've come across before, it can sound quite complicated. It's really not. It is literally about thinking about, what did I do well in that situation and what would I do differently next time? So it's those 2 key points. So it's looking back, what did I do well? What could I do differently next time? And that is a massive learning process, but often we're too busy to do it. Reflective practice can be done in kind of with somebody else. So talking it through with somebody, just those 2 points. It can be done writing things down if you're a person that likes to write. I personally, when I deliver training courses, I live in a little village called Laurencekirk, or a town called Laurencekirk, and I usually deliver training in Aberdeen and once a month in London, but that's a bigger commute. When I'm in Aberdeen, it's a half-hour drive. And so on my way home, I think about those 2 questions about that course that day, because the courses I deliver quite frequently. So I think, okay, what went well and what can I do differently next time? And it's just a constant learning process. It's a constant kind of evaluation. That's no problem, Natasha. We're glad you're here. Okay. And recharging, so that mental rest again is massively important, and again that ties into that previous point about mindfulness. As Hassani said, it kind of brings those points together. Okay, so again, thinking about where you are in terms of that, in terms of reflect and recharging. Do you give yourself a break? I know for a lot of mums, the answer is no. Okay, so when would being resilient be useful? And I think lots of the situations that you shared at the beginning, absolutely, resilience massively comes in useful there. Some other points. So resilience may be useful when dealing with personal challenges. Any professional setbacks, we all have them now and again. And I think actually acknowledging that we all have them. So what can we learn from it? How can we move forward? Stressful situations, we definitely all have those. Uncertainty and change. Relationships, sometimes, often we can have challenging relationships, and that's not necessarily the relationship with your significant other. It could be with family members. It could be with people in the workplace. It could be with friends. So any kind of relationships. Oh, Kerry, you think Leadership Academy is your reset and recharge? Good. Yeah, that's good to hear. It's always good to connect and be able to bounce ideas and share challenges and that kind of thing in those situations. And health and well-being. So when we're considering our own health and our own well-being, and again, that goes back to having self-compassion, looking after yourself. Financial difficulties, I mentioned at the start, it is still a cost of living crisis. There's a lot of people in really difficult situations. And we absolutely need to draw on our resilience to get us through those and traumatic experiences. And of course, our resilience will help get us through, but particularly in that final one there, actually, with many of them, there is always the option of professional help. So if that is, dealing with trauma, it's about therapy. If it's financial difficulties, speaking to a financial advisor and actually getting help before it gets to crisis point. Okay, so what can you do? So set some goals, love your work. I very much believe in, if you love the work that you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I absolutely love my work. And I don't feel like it's work at all. It's not often that I do an evening session, so this is really nice. Cut yourself some slack, give yourself a break. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I know we are our own biggest critic, but cut yourself some slack. Take small breaks, learn some self-control, create a motivating playlist. So a few of you talked about music, and yeah, definitely creating a motivating playlist can help. I'm usually stuck with my daughter's music, which is usually Taylor Swift. Not my favorite. Schedule regular check-ins with your manager or with a colleague. Make a passion poster, so things that you love, and remind yourself, keep it visible, keep focused on the things that you live for. And for a lot of us, that's our kids, but it's not just our kids. What did we do? What were we passionate about before kids? And capture your successes. So no matter how small, capturing and kind of giving yourself that recognition. As humans, we need recognition. And whilst it's wonderful when that comes from other people, give yourself the recognition as well. Definitely does help in terms of motivation. So what action are you going to take now? So what I'm going to ask you to do is to write down anything that kind of got you thinking throughout the session, and write down what action you're going to take. It would be great if you can have follow-up discussions, if you're having Teams calls or get-togethers in person, and kind of follow up on that point, because the more we share our actions, the more we talk about them. So there's a lot of research into the fact that if we repeat, what we're going to do, repeat our intentions, it increases. The more we repeat our intentions, the likelihood of it happening or us doing it actually increases as well. And I can't tell you the particular percentages, But it is quite vast in terms of, I think if we say it at least 3 times, there's a very good chance that we're actually going to follow through on that action, particularly if we share them with other people. I would love to see anybody's actions in the chat if you would be willing to share them. Make a motivational playlist, good. Take some more time to recharge. Think how much this will affect me next week, next month, absolutely, when you overthink. The other thing I'll say there, just as other people are possibly typing or sharing, is to give yourself deadlines. Because again, if we leave actions open-ended, they often get put to the bottom of the list. Whereas if we prioritize them, they're more likely to happen as well. Anyone else want to share? I plan on working out what I enjoy to make it work well for me. Good. I do this alongside my full-time job, so want it to be enjoyable. Yeah, absolutely. Alice, just about to move rooms. We're all swapping about. So a memory motivation board. Oh, that sounds really interesting. I love it. Brilliant. Anything else? Okay, we're almost at time, 3 minutes. I mentioned at the start that I take little steps to move your business forward and make sure that I reward myself. Yeah, absolutely, Esther. It's so important that you are rewarding yourself and you're recognizing that progress as you go along. Share it with your friends and family. It can be, it can be quite lonely having your own business, but making sure that you make the most of the support network that you have within the business, but also with the people around you, the people that you kind of care about. So I mentioned that I had a list of 8 books that kind of relate to resilience and how we teach children about resilience. Has anybody got any guesses in terms of what those are? Or any thoughts? Feel free to put your mics on. Any ideas? So I've got my list here. Oh, feel the fear and do it anyway. That's one of my favorite quotes, Natasha. Atomic Habits, yeah, really interesting as well. Yeah. Oh, sorry, are these books? Sorry, I was meaning your books. But yes, absolutely. I agree with the things you've said, but I'm not sure that they're Usborne books, are they?
Was it any of the, I was going to say the All About Feelings?
Yeah, All About Feelings. I think was an earlier version, maybe What About Feelings? What are feelings? Because I think that came up as well. So All About Feelings, yeah. Turtle Boy, I never spotted that one. That sounds good. There was, I know that we're at time, so there was the Miss Molly's School of Confidence. There was the Unworry book, the Unhurry book, All About Feelings, Miss Molly's that you mentioned, the Teen Survival Guide, a little bit older age group, the Friendship Survival Guide, knowing that my friend's gone through some kind of challenges with friendships, that would have been a good one. A Glass House of Stars, and then All About Feelings. So that was the 8 that I got. No, that's okay, Natasha. I was maybe not clear. Hyena Ballerina, I've not heard that one. That sounds good as well. Okay, thank you all very much. It was a bit of a whirlwind session with a lot to cover. I really hope everyone's been able to take something away, and please do follow up on those actions. Resilience is massively important, and it's something that doesn't get enough kind of airtime when we talk about development and that kind of thing. So thank you all very much. Lucy, do you want to say any final words?
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you so much to all of you for investing this time in your business to support you and your team as well with resilience. I think there was definitely a lot that everyone could relate to in that, and I will definitely be looking at my habits of resilient people and looking at that with the rest of the UCP team as well. So thank you so much, Louise, for giving up your evening for us. and you can report back to Pauline that you obviously had a much better time tonight than she'll be having on her holiday.
Oh, I know, absolutely. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much,
Thank you very much, everyone.